welcome into another episode of Sportslandia.
Oh, yeah.
Brought to you by Next Professional Athlete Recruiting Services, and a big shout out to Golden State Lumber for letting us use their office
Thank you.
as our recording studio. I don't think we've properly given them a shout out over the last few weeks, but definitely wouldn't have a space without them, so thank you to Golden State Lumber. Interesting topics this week. We're going to recap a little bit of the World Series, some managerial change, at least for one of our teams.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to get into. What the hell is the NBA in-season tournaments? I hope somebody can explain this to me. Just seems like another cash grab for the NBA. We'll recap some of the more exciting games in the NFL. Of course, we always have our fantasy Sandbaggers, which I hate to break it to you, even though Ramondre had a 20-pointer, this guy still won.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Even with Clayton, too.
Yeah,
all that work for
with
me.
negative points for you. And then we'll finish with a little bit of a nerd corner. I have a tiny one of my own.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if you'll like it or not. I feel like you would. I feel like you would.
Well, now I'm intrigued.
This is something that I think you would enjoy.
Okay.
So,
can't
so
wait.
we'll talk about that. But first, let's talk about the old World Series recap. First of all, the last time that we chatted, our predictions were wrong. We both said Phillies and Astros would win, even if it went to a Game 7. They did not.
No. The Diamondbacks pulled it back.
Yeah, they won 2 in a row on the road, which was huge for them. They shut down one of the most prolific offenses in MLB history.
Yeah, people were throwing around a pretty bad batting number those last couple of games for the Phillies, like something 2 for 27 or something. A lot of their big guys just were striking out, not really hitting.
Oh, yeah, with Schwarber, Harper, Stott, all of them.
A lot of unhappy Phillies fans.
I mean, everybody looks at the Phillies and they're like, well, they hit a bunch of home runs. But you look at a guy like Kyle Schwarber, who I love, former Chicago Cub, always. He'll be in the memory banks for a while. But he hits a lot of home runs. I think he had over 40 home runs this year, but he also hits around $160. So you're giving up a lot of hits, but you're getting the long ball when you need them.
Boomer bust.
Yeah, and he had 1 home run, and it came off of first at bat of one of the games.
Holy moly!
So it's very uncharacteristic. The young Diamondbacks were able to stifle the Phillies, which I don't think anybody necessarily saw happening.
No, especially where they were in that series. Yeah, it didn't seem possible.
No, not at all.
They were able to advance, make it to the World Series for that young team.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
So we were excited about that. And then the Rangers were able to win Game 7 against the Astros, which I think everybody in America was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, no one's too mad about that.
Getting Astros fatigue over here.
Yeah.
That being said, with that loss, one of the all-time, I don't want to say greats, but one of the most notable managers of all time, Dusty Baker's retiring.
I did see this, yeah.
Let's see, he managed the Giants, he managed the Cubs, he managed, most recently the Astros, the Nationals.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
He's gotten around, he's had a lot of success everywhere that he's went. He won 1 World Series, which was last year for the Astros. He at least got his, but now, he did what he needed to do, and I think he's just ready to retire from the game of baseball. I mean, he's been in the game since I want to say the 70s.
Yeah.
So, that's close to 50 years of just baseball. Being a player, being a manager, being a coach.
Long seasons, long off seasons.
Yeah, very much so. And, it's weird to think about one of the more iconic playoff moments was Dusty Baker's kid, running to go get a bat because he was a bat boy, and his kid was 4. And then I want to say it was Jeff Kent. I might be wrong on that name. But he's running home, and he steps on the plate and literally picks up his son so he gets out of the way of any play that's at the plate. That son is now playing minor league baseball.
Oh, my God.
Put that into perspective.
Jeez.
That's 20-plus years later, and now his kid is playing minor league ball. Historic career. Good for Dusty. Hate to see, one of those all-time managers leave the game, but he's kind of leaving on his own terms. I think his contract might have had 1 more year on it, but step away when you want to step away. I think he's ready to kind of just be a family man now, which I can't blame anybody who spent, as you said, the long seasons, long off seasons, in the game, and so he's gone. But
now he can be a family man and go watch minor league baseball.
Yeah, right. Now he's on the other side. He's not on the field. He'll be up in the stands.
Can't keep him away.
But the Rangers ended up making it to the World Series.
Yes.
They won in 5 games against the Diamondbacks, which was a little hurtful. I know you and I
Yeah,
were cheering for the
of
D-backs,
course. Go
working for the
Hops.
Hops and everything. I think it goes back to that case that we talked about back in the NLCS. Like, this is just a young Diamondbacks team, and they ran into a good pitching staff that really shut down their offense, and
Yeah,
they didn't have much of an answer to it.
yeah. I flicked a couple of these games on at different times, and most of them were a pretty wide disparity of score. So yeah, they clearly the making of the World Series was a pretty huge monumental thing for this Diamondbacks team. I think a lot of firepower they couldn't quite contend with once they got there, though. And yeah, the Rangers just kept on rolling.
Yeah, I think the final 2 games, it was 11-0 and then 5-0.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you hope you don't get a World Series like fatigue factor, or like the long playoff runs, and then think about like what happens in the
Oh, yeah.
Super Bowl. Usually the losing team, like a lot of the times, they don't make the playoffs the next year.
Yeah, the Super Bowl hangover is
Yeah, there we go. That's what I was.
Yes.
The World Series hangover is
yeah.
what I was thinking of, and with how young this team is, you hope that they can have sustained success. But you look at some of the other young teams, like the Cubs in the
Sure.
mid-teens 2000s or whatever. Hot start in 2015. Nobody thought they'd make it there, but then they made 4 straight NLCSs, made it to a World Series, and won it.
Jeez.
So you hope Arizona can do something
Yeah.
similar with all the young talent, both on the mound and out in the field for them. There'll be a few free agent pickups, I'm sure, this winter to try to bolster up the offense. But,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the Rookie of the Year coming back in Corbin Carroll. I don't think that's been officially announced, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't win it.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, sort of a disappointing series, not necessarily in the result, but
Yes. Not as close as you may like. For
Yeah.
Some of the casuals.
yeah,
like
4
me out
games to
there.
1.
It's hard to tune in, see that score, and not tune back out. I will say.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how the nature of the game.
And it was the lowest viewed World Series, I want to say, in close to a decade. I mean, it was very much a niche to the Southwest
Yeah.
with Arizona and then, Arlington, Dallas area.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure the Phillies would have brought in bigger numbers.
Yeah,
potentially,
100%.
but I again think if this is a close series and it goes towards 7, like those numbers may show up more, or maybe it's just more of a baseball in the current era climate kind of thing.
Yeah,
I
I'd
don't
like
know.
to. I'd like to see how viewership went, because games 1 and 2 they split, so it was still technically
Yeah.
like a series at that point, and then you had the
Right.
Rangers win 3 straight. But yeah, that's the kind of the recap for it all. I mean, the Rangers really just sort of manhandled
They did.
the D-backs.
It did feel like them being able to get back on Houston and win that series once they kind of got past the defending champs.
Yep.
They caught the kids and they were already rolling and were on a bit of a different level. So yeah, they end up taking it this year.
Yeah, their first World Series title in team history, and their 63-year history.
Wow.
So you do like to see that
You
a
do.
team win their first World Series title after
I'm here
such
for it.
such a long run. One of the other things we wanted to talk about in the MLB, though, is there was a shakeup in the managerial position for the Chicago Cubs, and I was not ready for it until I
No.
turned on ESPN today. Everybody was talking about Craig Counsell trying to go to the Mets, possibly going to the Mets. And then there were rumors that he was using the Mets as leverage to get a bigger contract from the Milwaukee Brewers.
Drive up the price. Okay.
Well, that's not the case at all. The Cubs have fired David Ross as their manager, which, he's a face that everybody loves
Sure.
in the Chicagoland area because of the lore of the 2016 team that won the World Series and him being on it and all that. But he's now out. Craig Counsell now in as the manager for the Chicago Cubs, which I think is a great hire. Craig did amazing things for the Milwaukee Brewers over the last, I want to say 5+ years, 6 years.
Okay.
But he has consistently churned out, playoff contenders, or at least getting to the postseason, which is half the battle, where anything can really happen, especially during a long season like it is for the MLB year. 162
season.
games and keeping everybody locked in. But Craig Counsell now the new manager for the Chicago Cubs, and I think that's a great hire. I hate to see Rossi go, but Craig gets the best out of young talent, which that's kind of where the Cubs are right now. They're getting a lot of younger guys from their minor league system coming up now, and you're going to be seeing more of that.
Well, if you're happy with the hire, that's a pretty good sign. I can only defer to you on that, and
Well, they've made some
we'll
stinker
see
of
where it
hires in the
goes.
past. I mean, before Joe Madden, they went through like 3 managers in 5 years, and
Okay.
um, guys that you'd never even heard of before, and they were just like, well, this guy was a bench coach for the last 10 years. Like, well, he's a bench coach. Not that there's anything wrong with that,
Sure.
but were there no more ambitions to move up to a different position or anything like that before just jumping straight to the manager role?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm ecstatic as a Cubs fan to see what Craig Counsell's going to be doing with possibly the young Cubbies coming up soon.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
And that's our baseball recap.
That is. I have no words for the Red Sox. I'm still abstaining.
Yeah, no, that's fair. They haven't done anything to get our voices
Nope.
to say their names in a while.
Nope.
Next thing, moving on though, what is the NBA in-season tournament this year?
Oh,
it's a first-time thing.
It is
for everybody in the NBA right now. I did like the uniqueness of the courts for the in-season tournament.
They're unique.
Some of them were okay. Some of them I wish weren't around.
A lot of them were pretty bad.
Yeah, I
say.
did not like the Bulls one that they had. I thought it was like bright red court.
A lot of them had some really strange. It felt like tertiary, too bright colors, or like some gross greens. The Blazers one was like a mostly red, which I was intrigued by. The actual color of the red itself was maybe a little more plasticky. I wish there was some kind of way to get some kind of hardwood element in there.
Yeah.
The thing I'm not a super huge fan of is they have the trophy on the floor, which is like a throwback to the NBA Finals, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But the big strip down the middle that they all had that included the paint and then continued in between felt very strange. Like if they had just cut that out at the paint and gone with that, I think it would have worked a little better. It felt like some kind of weird track field or something where with the big stripe down the middle. So a little conflicted on that. But yeah, the in-season tournament itself, I mean, it's kind of wild that we're already doing it, considering we're like 4 or 5 games in.
Yeah.
Not exactly mid-season.
Right.
That's why they call it in-season, I guess.
I mean, technically it is in season. We got 3 games in before we started playing them.
It is. But so everybody, these games are counted for regular season games and for these in-season tournament games.
Yeah, these were games that were already going to happen, but now their purpose is for an in-season tournament
they're sort of twofolds. That you're playing in a group with 4 other teams.
I think it's 4 other teams, yeah.
Or maybe 4 teams, so something like that. I think it's 4 other teams, yeah. So and then I don't know, that's counting as that as well as the regular season. At some point you make it out of that group. The only way you're actually getting more games in your season is if you're one of those final teams that's going to go to Vegas and play in whatever the version of this championship looks like. And I think even in that case, the number I've heard is that they'll have 83 games in their season. So it's
so 1 extra game.
Pretty much. And I'm curious how that will go, whether or not teams will kind of take an approach of, is it worth playing our best players in those games? How much do we actually care? If we're a contender for the finals, is it worth playing Jokic in a game like that and putting it at risk or something like that? Or, is it just another basketball game and you're playing 80 already? What's the difference? Let's just play the games. But I can say, watching the Blazers play the Grizzlies in the in-season tournament made that game have more weight. Like, it actually did. They were in the final 5 minutes and the Blazers were down 5 or something at multiple different points. And it did give you that little extra oomph of, like, I do actually kind of want to win this game. More than just, like, game 5 of an 82-game season. It was like, hey, if we win this, then we can maybe do another thing and keep going. You can say you're 1-0 in the in-season tournaments. And they played on that court with their new City Edition uniforms, which are, like, I mean, I think the Blazers probably have one of the few good ones this year because they just keep running through them every year, so it's kind of inevitable you'll run out of ideas if you're doing it this quickly, which I think is kind of a bummer. Like, all the past ones are just, like, gone now. Capitalism at its best. You gotta have the new shiny thing to sell the new shiny thing. But these Rip City ones looked good. They looked good on the court. The team played kind of incredible. They had a great come from behind. Shaden Sharp was all over the place. He blocked a 3-pointer to end regulation to send it to overtime.
That's wild.
Which was crazy. And then they ended up pulling ahead in overtime, sending the Grizzlies to 0-6 at the time. So the vibes were pretty good that night. Even with Scoot getting injured and Anthony Simons being out for an even longer amount of time, they've got Malcolm Brogdon in that trade, and he's just come in and been able to handle a lot of the offense. So
I feel like that's been a big addition for them.
it's been huge, and there's already like arguments both ways as far as when Scoot's back, whether or not he's going to start or he's going to watch from the bench and kind of come on with the second unit after Brogdon kind of learn. And I can kind of see the argument either way. He's had a rough start to the season as far as seeing the game, and so we'll kind of see where that goes. It seems like he may be back for this next road trip, but yeah, the in-season tournament, I think it'll be a fun addition. Some of the courts, I don't know as much.
They're just trying to like add some flash and change it up a little bit compared to what it has been.
And I love the idea of a different court because it did immediately was like, oh, these are
this
different.
is different, yeah.
The specific designs were kind of rough on a lot of them.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you on that one. There might have been like one or two that I was okay with, but for the most part, it was call me old here, but it was like too bright, too flashy for like what was going on.
Yes.
Now, I was just curious about what is even happening in this tournament or why they even added it. Here's what the NBA says. The in-season tournament will provide players and teams with another competition to win, engage fans in a new way, and drive additional interest in the early portion of the regular season schedule.
There it is. Additional interest in the early season schedule.
Yes, because everybody really thinks about, like, with football season going on, NBA season for most people doesn't start till like after Christmas.
100%. Yep.
So this is kind of getting more people involved. Now, they did break it down. It is... because I had to hit the Google machine.
You gotta.
Have to understand all this. All 30 teams have been randomly drawn into groups of 5 within their conference based on, it says one loss. I'm assuming it's supposed to say win-loss records from 2022-23 regular season beginning November 3rd through Tuesday, November 28th. Each team will play those 4 designated group play games on tournament nights. After that, it becomes knockout rounds, and the deeper you make it in the knockout round, the more compensation players on that team get. So players are getting additional compensation as well to sort of drive up the energy level for these games. Yeah. I don't know how I necessarily feel about that.
I don't. My issue with this, I guess, is the incentives. Like, as a team, I don't think there's a very good incentive for this. And even as the player, it's like most of the players, I don't think it'll make that big of a dent. Some of the end of the roll bench guys maybe get.
Yeah, I was gonna say those bump. People at the end of the bench are probably the ones that see the most significant change or income off of how far the team goes.
And I'm not sure what it would need to be. If maybe it would be too OP if it's like you're playing for a pick or something like that, or some kind of like trade exception maybe would be like interesting, or something that actually like would help in a team sense. Because as it is, like the Nuggets or something, it's not really. It becomes like the Challenge Cup with the NWSL, where it's just all the backups playing because the games don't really matter, and you're trying to go towards a bigger goal over here.
See, the only way that I see that sort of differs is these games actually still count for regular season, except if you make it the championship.
Yes,
then that one doesn't count as a regular season game. But
yeah, they were smart about that because it is still like this is the season.
Because I think that's sort of the loophole, or I don't even know if I want to call it the loophole, but what the NWSL realized is like, well, if these don't really matter, this is just like an in-season thing.
Yeah.
Do we really care about winning it? Like, is it?
Nope.
What is the point of the cup at that point for the NWSL? Because, like, you want to draw interest, but if you're not having the best players out there and it doesn't really mean anything, it's not like you win the championship for winning this in-season tournament.
No. That's why they've radically changed how that is even going to work in years future. So we'll see how it goes. I'm intrigued by the in-season tournament, and I think the Blazers have the Grizzlies, the Lakers, the Kings.
I got it right here for you.
So it's I don't know if they can win that group.
Yeah, we'll Memphis Grizzlies, Phoenix Suns, LA Lakers, Utah Jazz, and the Portland Trail Blazers.
So
that is West Group A.
The Suns and the Lakers there, I would assume, are probably some of the favorites. But we'll see how it goes. I think they have another one against the Lakers in the next coming week or so.
Well, it's all through November 28th, so that's that early part of the season again.
So we'll keep everybody posted as far as how that's going and how the Blazers are doing in that.
All right. Well, we'll get into more NBA talk next week as well. We are having our insider from Next Professional Athlete
Yeah.
joining us. His name's Chris, and he'll have the scoop for the NBA slate that is coming up. Especially, I'm just gonna say it. The NBA season hasn't started for me really. I'm too focused in on football and what's going on in
That's
that
why they're
way.
doing this tournament.
They-
Yeah, that's so.
Well, they didn't get my viewership, that's for sure.
A couple more courts.
A couple,
More
yeah,
colors.
they got me to look at the courts,
Get
but that's
there.
also I'll credit Twitter to that one because
Yeah.
that's where a lot of it popped up, and I just don't really see much to it. I mean, not for me personally. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm also not the biggest NBA
It's a
fan
small
compared to college basketball, where I much prefer the
Sure.
college game compared to the NBA game.
Sure. So we'll see. We'll talk with him next week about it and see if he can pique your interest a little bit for these early.
I'm
season
sure he
games.
will. He'll have some insight. He's lives in New York currently, so hopefully he's got that. Well, maybe not East Coast bias. Who knows? I hope he's not a Knicks fan.
We'll see. We'll find out.
That would hurt you a little bit, huh? It doesn't bother you so much.
I'm not really bothered by the Knicks.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really
It's
is.
like
Knicks haven't
being
been
bothered by the Jets or something. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm actually more bothered by the Jets because
because they
have
keep
had
beating you.
postseason success against us at least. Not as much the Knicks. So we'll see.
Speaking of the Jets, let's move over to the NFL. Not that we'll be talking about the Jets, but we've highlighted a couple of big games from this past weekend. Monday Night Football still has not happened. The Jets will be playing in that, but a couple of games to get started on. The Germany game, Dolphins
Frankfurt.
versus Chiefs, 21-14.
Explosive offenses, right?
Question mark?
Not so much. Great defenses.
Great
I guess, in
defenses,
this
yes.
game.
Some of the big highlights from this one, Travis Kelce set the all-time mark for receiving yards for a Chiefs player, over 10,000. So that's great
Wow,
for him. Great
that's huge.
accomplishment.
Did you see if Taylor Swift went to Germany? Did you see any cutaways?
I did not. I'd be surprised. I think she's supposed
That's
to
a long
start
plane
her.
ride.
She's supposed to start another part of her tour soon, I
Gotcha.
believe.
Yeah, I didn't see any cutaways, so I wasn't sure if I missed anything there, but that makes sense.
Yeah. The other thing, there were rumors that the Chiefs volunteered to go over to Germany because they didn't want Chiefs fans to boo Tyreek Hill. That didn't make much sense to me. That seems like a very
What?
weak excuse. You didn't hear any of that?
Why would they boo him?
I have no idea because they're upset that he moved, but it wasn't even his choice. He was traded.
They
he
won
was
Super Bowls with him, and they didn't want to pay him.
Yeah.
What right do you have to boo him?
Yeah,
That's absurd.
Fans are not necessarily the brightest people.
I don't even know that. That's weird to me. I wouldn't have even thought that they would boo him. So it's weird.
Yeah, I'm not huge on it, but Tyreek Hill did have a big play, but not in how the Dolphins wanted it. He got stripped
Ooh.
on a
Yeah.
swing pass, and the Chiefs returned it for a touchdown, which put them up 21-0 at the time, and that ended up being the difference in the game.
Yeah.
A late push for the Dolphins got it to within 7. The real question, though, is are the Dolphins
Fraudulent?
Fraudulent? Yeah, I was about to say. It's they're a team that
They beat the bad teams.
exactly they
They got the good
destroy
offense.
the bad teams because the defenses can't keep up with their speed and everything. But then you get more disciplined teams like the Chiefs defense and some of these other teams that have taken down the Dolphins, Eagles being one of them as well. It's just
Yeah. You got to beat a good team eventually if you want to be thought of as a good team. I mean, they can make the playoffs by beating up on all these other bad teams.
But guess what? You play good teams in the playoffs.
But exactly. How far does that get you? I don't know. Part of it kind of reminds me of like a Big 12 offense or something where you're putting up 40 points a week. And then you get towards the end of the year, you play an SEC team, and that doesn't really happen, and you're not able to pull it out.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think the big difference, they're going to go on bye next week, and then Devon Achane's coming back.
that could be a game changer for
He
him.
was the guy who was out there when they were scoring 70. So I think that adds a totally different dimension to their offense, but it's still similar issues. You could call them what the things they call these high flying offenses when they're not doing so great. The finesse team, you know, do they have the strength? If it's like them versus the Eagles, like the Eagles are the opposite of that. They're all, freaking strength, and they steal it down from you, and they're doing the tush push. So I don't know. We'll see how they go. They're playing some more bad teams. I did hear they end their season with like Cowboys and the Bills. So they're gonna have to get some tests at the end of the year.
Yeah, down near the end. The other thing,
Although are the Bills fraudulent? I don't know.
they're kind of on the fence right
You
now.
lose to the Patriots. How bad are you?
The other thing I was
My
hearing
God.
about the Dolphins is kind of that home field advantage. And I'm not talking about the sunlight stuff on the sidelines that we've kept hearing. But I forget which analyst I saw breaking it down. But their cadences when they're at home works in their favors where Tyreek Hill is in motion as the ball's being snapped, and then he can go forward. You're not really seeing
It's
much
like Arena
of that.
Football League.
Yeah, but you're not seeing much of that during these away games,
Right.
because you can't get that timing right on your cadence and all that stuff. So I'm wondering if that also plays a factor in their offense. Because yeah, they're explosive when they're at home
They are.
as well, but
when the crowd's against them, it's a little harder to get that play call
exactly
and line it all up.
So there seems to be some nuances with this team where it really works with them, also kind of hurts them at times.
There are, yeah, but Tyreek wasn't able to get the revenge game. He wasn't able to quite complete it there. So we'll see. We'll see where they end up at the end of the year. And then, there was, we talked about him last week, top 5 backup quarterback Josh Dobbs gets traded from the Cardinals to the Vikings after Kirk Cousins goes down, tore his ACL, Achilles.
Yeah,
out for the year.
Tore his Achilles, yeah.
Yeah, so they brought him in. They weren't planning on starting him because he just got there.
Got off the plane maybe 24 hours beforehand.
Jaron Hall?
Yep, and then he got concussed.
Yeah, which pretty much means you're immediately out.
Yeah, you're not going back into that one. And then he was the emergency quarterback, which says something because they didn't have a backup quarterback then, because Dobbs went in immediately.
Yeah, I heard that Cam Akers was basically the next backup for him.
Well, he's out now too.
And he immediately got hurt too.
He tore his Achilles. I got the update this morning.
Yeah, which is tough for him. That's the second Achilles tear he's had in his career. But so it's just the Josh Dobbs show again, and boy was it.
I mean, he balled out. We were talking about before all this recording, the hoops that he basically had to go through while being the quarterback in this game was incredible. I mean, we think about what Baker Mayfield did. He showed up 36 hours or 72 hours, something like that.
For that Rams
game where he came in and he won the game for him.
Yeah.
But Dobbs walked off a plane, doesn't even know his teammates' names, barely knows any of the plays.
Like you said, doesn't know the cadence.
Yeah, doesn't know the cadence. Like, he was working on snaps with his center. The linemen were around him so they could hear his cadence on the sideline while he was taking these snaps. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a tougher situation to walk into, and Dobbs, I thought, flourished.
Yeah.
He seemed pretty unfazed. I'm sure he was at some times, but you don't lead a comeback and get a win when you don't know anything. I mean, Kevin O'Connell was breaking down plays after giving it to Dobbs as the play clock is going down. And mind you, once it gets inside 10 seconds, that communication's cut off.
Yep.
So you're constantly trying to get that play call to him early so he can recite it to the offense, and then O'Connell's got to break it down for him. Here's what you're looking for on this play over here and all this. And I thought he did a terrific job. I'm thoroughly impressed with what Dobbs was able to do in this short instance. All-time Halloween jersey grab, though, probably in 10 years. Get the 9 for Arizona, the 15 for Minnesota, and everybody will know who Josh Dobbs is off of the strange start of 2023, because this is his third team, technically. Probably fourth team, actually, in the last calendar year, because he played that playoff game for the Titans.
Yeah.
Then he was on the Browns for preseason.
The Browns.
Then sent to Arizona for the start of the year, a week before the season started, and now he's in Minnesota because he got traded because Kirk Cousins went down.
Madness. I'm curious what this will do for the Viking season too. If they're gonna now kind of start building some momentum. They're 5-4, as bad as the start they've
won 4 in a row.
As much injuries as they've had, I don't know. The NFC is kind of wide open, but kind of a complete disaster by the Falcons once again. Arthur Smith, I don't know how long he's going to be there. He keeps misusing the players that they draft. So.
Misusing the players. I mean, they can't figure out their quarterback situation right now. Get Heineke in. He'll be the starter again coming up. I mean, the Falcons, they're not a good team despite having all the talent offensively. Their defense really is not that bad. They've given up some
Jesse
bad
Bates
plays,
is
though.
Pretty solid. I mean, they had a chance to trade for Lamar and they weren't interested. So I think that says enough about their whole season. I bet they regret that now.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lamar, 37-3, they destroy the Seahawks. They're probably playing the best football in the NFL right now.
All of that coming off of that loss to the Steelers.
Yeah.
Where their offense looked pathetic.
Yeah, which was just Ravens-Steelers games. You kind of just have to put them in an entirely different category. Right. They're very weird. It's always a field goal battle and weird defensive things are happening. But they've beaten up on 2 class of the NFC teams in the Seahawks and the Lions. They beat up on the Cardinals last week, which was whatever. But they're playing good ball, and I'm curious what's going to happen there. They're getting enough from everybody around Lamar. He's got enough running backs. This Keaton Mitchell kids come up and made some plays last week. So, but their defense has just been kind of a revelation this year, and they just get so much pressure. So they're rolling. The whole NFC West really wasn't rolling this weekend. A combined 6 points from the 3 teams that played.
Yeah, that was Rams, Seahawks,
got 3,
and Arizona.
Cardinals got blanked, and the Seahawks got 3. So, hopefully, was one of them tonight or no?
No, the 49ers are off.
Okay, see, so 6 points total for the whole. That's not great.
And you think about the NFC West used to be the cream of the crop. I mean, it's like the Rams were good with McVay early on.
Shanahan, McVay for years now. Pete Carroll and Seahawks.
Exactly, and then you would have the
Kyler
occasional
the
blip of the Cardinals.
First half of the season would always be really good.
Yeah, exactly. And the second half sort of fall off there.
They seem like they're going to be in a transition. Probably move Kyler at some point. It'll be interesting, but and then the biggest probably funnest game of the weekend I think was Texans Buccaneers. CJ Stroud
went off, and then you saw one of the more we'll talk about Stroud, but one of the more strange things is you had a running back kicker go for the field goal, Goombawale.
Yes. Yeah, their kicker got hurt early in the game. They were going for 2 a lot of the times.
Yep.
Then they did have him come in and kick. And he made an extra point. He sent a kickoff through the back of the end zone. Kind of incredible. Not since I just saw this on Twitter. Not since Wes Welker has anybody a non-kicker made a field goal in a game.
What about Reed, the safety for Kansas City?
I simply saw a thing on Twitter and repeated it. I cannot.
Well, Twitter's the truth. The internet is pure truth,
anything, so. I don't know. Maybe it was like an offensive player or something.
That's probably what it is. Probably an offensive player.
Made it do that.
But C.J. Stroud, though, 5 touchdowns, set the new rookie record for most passing yards in a game in the rookie season. He had 470 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. Hooked up with his fellow rookie wide receiver Tank Dell for a couple of them.
Keep it coming.
I mean, the Texans might be a year away from being for real. And the only reason why I say a year away is just because they're so young right now.
Yes, yeah, it's still working behind a patchwork line. Obviously, the defense isn't necessarily top-notch at this point if they're winning 39-37. But seeing what they're seeing from Stroud already and the weapons around him, like with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, who was a great signing for them.
I'm sorry. Did you just give praise to Nico Collins? Did I hear that?
I said his name and then I moved on.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
He wasn't the top receiver. He did good. He was behind Noah Brown, another great, highly talented player. But yeah, they got to be pretty happy. CJ Stroud's on his way to offensive rookie of the year, it seems like.
Yeah, he's running away with it.
And they're 4-4. They're not in that good of a division. It's crazier things have happened. The Bills are starting to flounder a little bit. Maybe they do end up in this playoff push. And the most impressive thing is this was not empty yards, empty touchdowns.
No, it was a close game.
They weren't easy play. The touchdowns he was throwing were incredible, and they needed all of it. They needed that final drive with 40 seconds, and he hit Tank Dell twice more with 6 seconds left. They got him in the back of the end zone, and it was a coming out party for them for sure. And they've got a young head coach, and they seem like they're set up for a while.
Yeah, and a defensive minded head coach too, which makes me think that
good for this team.
Yeah, the defense has struggled a little bit, but I think any first-year coach that's trying to implement his system, you're going to have these games where, you're going to give up 30 points. That's sort of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Not that Tampa Bay are world beaters by any means, but, Baker Mayfield has certainly held his own as a quarterback filling in this year.
And their skill positions are, they were winning a Super Bowl a couple years ago. So
Rashad White had a great game. Mike Evans is still Mike Evans once you get him the ball. So it's not like the Bucs are a bunch of nobodies, but defensively, I think Houston will probably take a step in the next year just because of who the head coach is. D'Amico Ryan seems like great motivator, and then sort of a no-nonsense kind of guy where he's not going to let you make multiple mistakes in a row if he sees that you're not even putting in the effort to try to make a change.
Yeah.
So I'm really impressed with how Houston has put together their offense and what they've been able to do. Might be my first regret in our fantasy league.
There we go. There it is.
Might be. We'll see. It's one player. I'm not terribly hurt about it. I wanted the return that I got.
It depends on the return. We'll see where it goes. But I was pretty happy after this week. This was what I was envisioning when I had the stack of the double dip with Tank Dell and CJ Stroud. Last week, not so much. This week, so much. So I don't have a lot to say on the rest of the games. I do want to just say we are getting into the tanking territory, and with the Giants, Daniel Jones going down 2-7, the Bears 2-7, the Patriots 2-7, and the Panthers 1-7.
And then the Cardinals are 1-6.
Oh, they've already had a bye week.
Yeah.
Right. Cardinals 1-6 as well.
1-6, I think. 1-6 or 1-7. Oh, they're 1-8.
So they're way up there. So
excuse me.
You've obviously also got the Panthers pick, so it's going to come down to who's losing. I think the Patriots aren't going to try to lose, but they don't have to try to lose.
It's a lose-lose for the Bears this coming Thursday too, by the way, because they play the Panthers.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, it's a win-lose, maybe.
Someone's
losing.
You want to win.
You want to win.
You want to win, so the Panthers continue to lose,
or you lose and even it out. But yeah, it seems like those teams all have the inside track to some of those top picks and the quarterbacks. I can't. I hope my Patriots are just going to keep losing. I don't have to hope that bad because they're just bad. Like, they're just terrible.
Well, speaking of the Patriots, though.
No, we don't have to.
Well, I wasn't necessarily going to talk about the Patriots per se, but I was going to talk about Josh McDaniels. As the Raiders play the Giants, McDaniels. He'll be on our team in a couple weeks I was going to say, give him a couple of weeks. Yeah. And, much like that Alabama system where, big name got fired, come be the assistant offensive coordinator over here.
It's happened before. I mean, and last time he drafted Tebow, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, well, but the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels and their GM.
Yeah,
made
like 1
Antonio
midweek
on Halloween.
Yeah,
which I heard a rumor on Twitter, which we know the internet is pure truth.
That's usually true. Yeah.
It was so funny. I just envisioned it. I wish it was true. I have no idea if it actually is. But they said that McDaniels, McDaniels dressed up.
Right now,
yeah. McDaniels dressed up as Mark Davis for Halloween.
What?
Got into the office. Davis thought it was funny, then ordered P.F. Chang's and told him to open up the fortune cookie. This is where it's definitely fake. It goes, "You're fired, buddy."
Oh.
And I was like, if that was true, I would love every single second of that story. But he got fired. Antonio Pierce becomes the interim head coach. And I think he just completely changed the locker room. Nobody respected McDaniels. And a story came out shortly after he got fired that he had a meeting with the team.
Yeah.
And they were all allowed to air their grievances with him. And a lot of them did not hold back from, some of the stories that were said, but nobody liked how he was doing it. Yep. Antonio Pierce stepped up and led the meeting at one point and talked about how his Giants team knew what they were going up against this undefeated Patriots team. I know it's going to hurt you a little bit, but he said, we just had to go after it. We had this fire. We need to have that same fire if we want to win games this season.
We gotta stick together. We can do anything. Nobody believes in us.
Yeah, and then Josh McDaniels after the meeting goes, "You don't talk about the Patriots like that." Excuse me?
Which is such a little rat move.
Such a rat move. Like, oh my goodness, dude. You don't even work for that organization anymore. You can cherish the time that you were there with them. Don't get me wrong. But don't talk about the Patriots like that. What are we? Are we in middle school? Like, what? That is such a childish answer.
Bizarre. And especially as a Patriots fan who it hurts to hear that, but it's also like, they beat us fair and square. I don't have anything else to say about it. Like, why are you... Yeah.
Yeah, why are you holding out... I don't even want to say anger, but why would you bring up that succession of words just being like, don't talk about the Patriots like that? It's like, dude, what?
This is pretty much exactly how I thought this would go.
Same.
Because this is how it went last time.
Yeah, I did not expect him to be a good head coach again.
And the Raiders are they basically went back to back of just hiring a big name and hoping it would work. And so maybe they'll stick with Pierce now and they'll just actually have like a decent locker room coach or something. Because, the Gruden era into this McDaniels era, it's not been great. And, I mean, the death nail was him starting Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, I don't think anybody...
If you do that, you should be fired.
Like, Hoyer is strictly a guy who comes in as an emergency because your starter got hurt in the middle of a game.
He's probably okay in the quarterback's room midweek. He's been around a lot, but I never want him in the game, period. So it's fitting that he got fired, and he'll be on the Patriots again in a couple weeks. And then help us get the number 1 pick, hopefully.
Yeah, and then Aiden O'Connell got the start now for the Raiders, so they've completely moved on from Jimmy Garoppolo too. That's sort of a side story that not a lot of people talked about. Pierce made the decision that, we just signed Jimmy Garoppolo to like a $70 million deal for 3 years, oft injured, and it's just like, you know what?
Only.
we'll start the rookie. We had high praise for him during the preseason. They drafted him in the 4th round.
You might as well. You know what you got with Garoppolo.
Right? And then you know what you have with Hoyer, too. So it's just like, why not give the rookie a chance? And he actually made some really nice throws. He actually contributed to the longest play the Raiders have had this year, which was like a 54-yard pass to another rookie. So, maybe the Raiders have a little hope that, they'll have sparks. I'm not saying they're going to be a winning team.
If they were in the NFC South, they would have hope. But they're in the AFC West.
I'm not saying hope to make the playoffs. Just hope to not fold in on yourself during the season. Because, you could have a lot of infighting and just give up. And there still seems there's a lot of pride in that locker room that nobody's going to mail it in.
Yeah, and I have also heard, they kind of are probably going to sit Garoppolo just so that he doesn't get hurt. And then they end up having to pay that contract out later on. If he's not hurt, maybe you can get out of it in the next offseason. So he's probably not going to play much more football for them at this point. But
you wish you probably could have traded him at the deadline, which already passed last week.
Same with Devontae. Honestly, at this point, it's
you could have gotten some type of. I suppose once the season's over, you could still trade them and get some type of draft compensation. But there were probably some desperate teams that could have used Jimmy G. Could you think
the Vikings?
I was about to say Minnesota was a team. It was Kirk Cousins going to be gone at the end of the year.
Clearly needed a quarterback. They traded for one, but I don't know how you trade for Garoppolo. The guy's just never healthy. He started 4 games for the Patriots when Brady got suspended, and he couldn't even get through that.
He got through 2 games.
He
got
just
hurt.
He can't stay on the field, and even when he's on the field, not that great. So I don't know. Might be near the end of the road for old Jimmy G.
What's not near the end of the road, though, is Fantasy Sandbaggers.
Yes.
We got a 2-week recap here.
Yeah.
Week 8. You won Week 7. You had actually won 2 weeks in a row. I put up a 95 spot. You put up 76 in Week 7. Week 8, though, after
95.
We didn't have any buys, no injuries to account for our Sandbaggers. So I had Ritter, Stevenson, Mostert, Osborne, Valdez-Scantling, Fant, Bears, defense, and Will Lutz. I put up 49.78, the lowest score that we have ever had in our Sandbaggers league so far.
49.
Right? Under 50.
It's half your previous score.
Right? And then for you had Russell Wilson, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Mooney, Michael Thomas, Kyle Pitts, Cardinals defense, and Daniel Carlson.
Oh.
For 63 points.
Okay.
So Week 8 went to me.
Damn.
We had some changes for Week 9 due to some buys. Ritter was benched, so I had to pick a new quarterback. I picked up Daniel Jones. I'm going to have to pick up another quarterback because he got hurt. Lutz was on bye, so I picked up Chad Ryland, who didn't necessarily have a bad game, but, put up 6.3 points for the Patriots as their kicker.
Couple extra points,
yeah.
Terrible offense.
Russell Wilson was on bye for the Broncos. For your team, the only change you made was to put in Clayton Tune, who is a fill-in backup right now. Negative 2.78 points. I mean, that's the winner for the lowest scoring single person so far.
I really thought that would propel me into a good week, but
what really hurt you was Najee Harris putting up 14.2.
Yeah.
Darnell Mooney decided to show up for once with 10.8 points.
Yeah, I looked up at the TV and saw him streaking down the sideline at one point, and I was like, "You're kidding."
Yeah, I was shocked because he was on my bench in our regular fantasy league.
Of course he was.
Because I'm just too afraid to start him because it's going to be 0 half the time.
Yeah, it is.
And then the last one that really hurts you, Daniel Carlson, 14.7 points as the Raiders kicker.
Then look, it's my fault for not knowing which Carlson kicker.
There's too many Carlsons.
I had
too many.
So I'll take that. But I mean, yeah, the Raiders putting up 30. That didn't help me.
So I had 49.78 points last. No, it was last week. This week I had 50.2.
Oh,
very close to a 40.
What the hell? How am I supposed to get down there?
You had 58.64.
Oh, I was sort of down there.
You were down there.
Okay.
It was. You were leading the way until I got to Carlson, the very last one in that 14 spot.
Damn it.
Ramondre Stevenson had 20.8 points for me.
Yeah,
Mostert had 12.7.
He fell in the end zone.
And then, KJ Osborne got hurt, so he's going to be out for a little bit. Valdez-Scantling just being a Chiefs receiver.
Boomer bust.
Yep. Noah Fant put up a 0 for me. I think that also saved me.
Yeah.
The tight end not doing anything offensively for Seattle. In fact, the entire offense for Seattle did not go well.
Seriously.
But that also brings us to the bye weeks. Since there were no bye weeks in week 8, now we had 4 in week 9, and now we move on to week 10. I'm going to have to find a new receiver. Valdez-Scantling's on bye. Mostert's on bye for me as well in the running back situation, so that's going to help me in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
You have to pick up a new running back as well, as DeAndre Swift is on bye.
Oh, thank God.
And I believe that's it. We don't have any Rams. We don't have any...
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So we'll have to figure that out through the next couple weeks, unless you want to try to
do
that right now.
Nope, I'll wait. I'm going to wait.
You're going to wait? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to think about it, actually.
Okay. You do that. You think about it.
I'm waiting.
You think about it.
I need something to change at this point to get down in those 50s with you, down in the muck. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good fantasy Sandbaggers. Before we get to Nerd Corner, I wanted to update on some esports.
Yeah,
Worlds,
hit me with it.
League of Legends Worlds. We talked about the Swiss stage, which I really enjoyed. It made for some pretty competitive matches. Got down to the end. It was 2 Western teams against each other to make it to quarterfinals. G2, the team that I put all my hope in, and NRG, the team that kind of used to be my team in the LCS, and then I gave up on them because I found out James Dolan owned them. And then he got sold to somebody else, and then they went on this run and won the region. And then they 2-0'd G2, and they beat G2 and moved on to quarterfinals and ended G2's run at Worlds, which was kind of heartbreaking. G2 released their scrims results, which is kind of like their practice results of all these teams at these tournaments practice against the other teams at these tournaments, and they had really good records against almost every other team at the tournament. The Korean teams, the Chinese teams, and NRG, they were 7-0 against in their practices. But their stage performance was just not on point. They got 0-2'd. Their drafts were kind of rough. They kind of put them right where they wanted, NRG did, and kind of countered them pretty hard in a couple of their elements and knocked them out and made it to quarterfinals, which was tough. Anyways, quarterfinals moved on, and a lot of the Chinese teams just kept winning. Weibo and BLG ended up moving on. JDG ended up moving on, and then the only Korean team left, T1, who has the GOAT of League of Legends, Faker.
Okay.
Literally the GOAT. They won all sorts of championships back in season 3s through 8 and stuff. They were winning back to back all over the place. They're the final Korean team. The tournament is in Korea, so they're the last hope of their region against, and the other 3 in the quarterfinals are all Chinese teams. So it's the last hope, and Faker hasn't won.
Come on, Korea.
He hasn't won in a long time, and he hasn't won with this group. He's playing with a bunch of babies around him that are super talented rookies who've had some heartbreaks. I think they lost finals last year. I'm pretty sure. They have this legacy kind of recently of getting all the way there and then kind of falling short. So I'm curious if it'll happen again. They're matched up against JDG in their side of the bracket, who is the tournament favorite. I think they won MSI. They're just almost unbeatable, it feels like. Very good team fighting team. And then the other side is BLG Weibo, which is just going to be crazy fights and action because the Chinese teams are crazy like that. And they have Weibo has a player named The Shy who is very high variance and very fun to watch. So I'm curious how that'll go. Well, I'm kind of rooting for T1 so Faker can get maybe one more championship and add to his trophy case with these new kids. But it's all coming down to it. So we're down to the 4 teams. They're going to play a couple best of 5s, and then we'll know our answer. Any questions?
This is for the Asian Championships?
This is for the World Championships.
World Championships.
This is their Super Bowl.
Okay, the cream of the crop here.
This is it. This is everything. So,
all right.
We'll see how it goes. It's in Korea. The Chinese have been winning recently. So
what was the highest North American team? 32nd?
No, I mean NRG made quarterfinals.
Oh, okay. So that's top 8.
And G2 just missed out. They were top 16.
Okay, so you're getting some representation a little bit later, and there's
still a gap.
There's
still a gap. NRG ended
what does the pool start at?
Quarterfinals.
Does it start 64 like the NCAA tournament?
No,
or 68 now, whatever you want to call it.
I guess there's 4 major regions, and those 4 major regions basically get 4 seeds apiece. So there's sort of 16 there, and then they have some minor region teams come in for play-ins.
Okay.
And there's maybe 10 there, and only 2 of those make it out. So there's...
So roughly 28 teams, 26, 28, somewhere in there.
16-ish once you're through play-ins or so. So, yeah, only the top teams of every region. So there's been a lot of good League of Legends, and there's been some great drafts and some very fun content with some of the streamers that I've been watching. So we'll see how it all ends. But there's only one hope left for Korea, and all the Western teams are out. So we're just trying to avoid the dominance that could be this era that we're in of the LPL and the Chinese teams winning everything.
Let's go Korea.
Let's go Korea. Let's go Faker. Let's go the GOAT. See if he can pull it off.
Now I have a nerd corner topic I'd like to speak about.
Yes, I'm intrigued by this. What could this be?
I got 4 words. 4 words for you. Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, okay.
Are you into that at all or not?
I've watched YouTube videos
about it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was watching all the Matt Pat videos back in the day when that was big. All the theories. I enjoy the theories and the lore.
Same.
I've never really played the game myself.
I've never played the game myself either.
Seen the movies,
but I watched the movie. Yeah, I watched the movie.
Is this out like outside of theaters? How did you see this?
It's on Peacock.
Oh, okay.
I watched it on Peacock. It's in the theater across the street over here as well. But yeah, all about the lore. I used to watch like the YouTube videos with my brother, so
it's the best bit of it feels like.
100%. If you know the lore and sort of that backstory into it, it makes it so much more better. I talked about it with my wife, and she was like, "Well, I don't know like why any of this makes sense or whatever." So like she didn't necessarily get it, which I totally understand.
I mean, it's good to have that perspective of somebody who's unknowing of it and seeing the movie, and versus you, where you're a little more well versed.
Well, she's like, "I don't understand why kids were this, kids were that, and like how the animatronics were moving and stuff like that." It's like, well, you kind of need to know some of the backstory and about the game to really understand it.
Sure.
I liked Josh Hutcherson.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah, something like that. Josh H. I'll say that. That's
the Baker's
for sure.
Boy.
Yeah, the dude from
from Hunger Games.
From Hunger Games. PETA.
So stupid.
Such
he designs cakes and then paints himself like a rock.
Right.
That's so stupid.
Anyways, enjoyed his role in Five Nights at Freddy's. I thought the movie was well done.
Okay.
For a budget of $25 million, it's already surpassed $200 million worldwide.
It's making bank. I mean, it's got a pre-built audience, and
that's the thing. The pre-built audience.
Kids are crazy about it. Like, they absolutely are.
You said you like the lore. I would say watch it, and I'd love to hear your opinion about it.
We'll see.
It's quick. I mean, it's like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not like a 2.5-hour movie or anything like that.
Right.
But I thought the characters like Freddy and all of them, I thought those looked great for the budget that they were on. The whole aspect of it all. Matthew Lillard is in it, which
I do like that. He's great.
Yeah, I think he's a terrific actor. Gets overlooked a lot for his capability and range.
Yeah.
But he's in it, and just the story in general was pretty good.
They're gonna make a lot more of these.
I'd be shocked if they didn't make at least 1 or 2 more of them with how much 100%. Success they've had.
Oh yeah.
Recouping their money and some. As I said, $200 million off of a $25 million budget. I mean, that's like a big fat Greek wedding type thing. Like smaller aspect of course, but like the amount of money that they've made back off of what the original budget was, and there was no like advertising for it. You just knew there was one trailer for it, and it was on YouTube. And if you knew about Five Nights at Freddy's, you were gonna go check it out. You didn't need to look for it online. You didn't need
the YouTube hype train did enough to kind of get it rolling. But
exactly.
70 million, I think, in its opening weekend, and in an era where movies aren't really making that much in their opening weekend anymore. Like whatever new Marvel movie comes out in a couple weeks,
the Marvels,
probably gonna make. I mean, it probably will get past 70 million in its opening weekend. They've still got some staying power, but it may not. Like I think those are a little higher numbers post-pandemic than they used to be.
People are a bit Marvel fatigued too.
Yes, for sure.
And they keep introducing a lot of new characters that I think most people don't necessarily care for or not well known compared to the other. Like everybody know who Iron Man was.
Yeah.
Or at least after the first Iron Man movie came out, you're like, oh, I know about Iron Man, and you know about Hulk, and Captain America, I know that name.
At least those actors too were at least like relatively big names.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty much out on the Marvel stuff until they do X-Men or Fantastic Four. So that's kind of where I've ended up at this point with the.
You really want to go back on a Fantastic Four? They've already botched it a couple times.
That's really, I mean, as far as things that they have in their bag that I'm interested in,
like concepts of stuff.
Those are the things I'd like to see their take on it. I mean, I'm sure it can't
'Cause
be
I think
better than the best Fantastic Four movie, which is The
Fox was
Incredibles.
heavily involved in those first ones, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and the first one's okay.
The first one's okay. The Silver Surfer one
Decent
I
cast.
heard didn't do so, like I watched it.
Yeah,
I don't think it was the same caliber as the first one. Not that the first one was amazing or anything like that,
some
but
moments. Yeah, but I'm never really a huge fan of the enemy as a big spooky cloud.
yeah,
Ever since Twitches 2, I've kind of been over that.
don't even know what Twitches 2 is.
Well, that's time for the next nerd corner. I can't
Okay.
do that today.
Let's get into your nerd corner as we close in on an hour here.
Oh boy! So yeah, my nerd. I'm going back to the anime corner, and
Okay.
I'm glad because I've started out with like basically the two biggest animes of all time on this podcast with One Piece, and now Attack on Titan, which ended its run last night, two nights ago. Basically, they put out their final special hour and a half episode, and they've kind of been dragging this out for a little bit. They've had 2 seasons that were called the final season, and then they put out a special that was called the final, and then this special came out that was the final. And I actually was like, I didn't actually think it would be the last one.
Yeah.
But it was. It actually was the last one, pretty definitively. And I texted you this the other day. Like, I thought this had, and it's been said before by others than me, that this had the potential to be like the best story in the history of fiction, which is a big claim, but it doesn't have a lot of holes. Like, start to finish, this show has been a banger, like action-wise, character-wise, emotion-wise, and some of the twists that they were able to bake in and pull off kind of from the beginning are kind of mind-blowing after years of watching the show. But they had to land the plane. They needed to land the plane to actually do it. And for me, I think they did. I actually think they kind of pulled it off, those crazy kids. I mean, I'm sure there are people who like it in art. I kind of gauged some of the community stuff on Twitter. It seemed like people were less happy with the manga's ending, and maybe this was slightly better. A lot of people were just very happy with how they did things, and myself included. Like, it was absolutely a banger. It started off at like a 10.5, like action-wise, and went to some pretty emotional places by the end, and sort of pulled one more rabbit out of their hat, I guess I would say. And I'm still kind of in shock that the series is over and mulling it around in my head. And it's one of those that I've only watched the whole series once, sort of caught up live and then finished it. So I now feel like I'm gonna have to go back through it all again and watch, and then maybe I'll have like a full actual view of how things are. But I said to you, it was like, it's anime's Game of Thrones in a lot of ways. The world building, the epicness, the characters. But the difference is by a mile that they actually did land the plane, whereas the Game of Thrones kind of completely undid their entire plane.
Yeah, well, they got ahead of themselves by they didn't have the books to go off of anymore.
Yeah, and then the showrunners
so
just wanted to stop doing the show, so they kind of just rushed it at the end. But we don't have to talk about that. I think they actually did it with Attack on Titan, and it's pretty impressive. And it's also like one of the best animes to start with, I would say. Like, the ones that kind of got me more interested in this whole realm were Attack on Titan and Death Note, which are both like just on Netflix, very easy to watch.
Did they make a live action Death Note?
They did. It's bad.
I was gonna say
they're all bad, other than One Piece somehow.
Oh, all the live action of the anime.
Every anime live action adaptation is bad. Pretty much the only exception is One Piece, which is crazy. But yeah, the original Death Note's on Netflix. That's a more digestible one. You can actually like watch the whole thing, and it won't take years.
But Attack on
unlike
Titan,
a One Piece, Attack on Titan is more manageable. You know, it's like I guess it's like 5 seasons and 2 movies.
That's not bad.
So compared to One Piece, which is 1,000 episodes,
1,000.
There's not to that extent with Attack on Titan. They're like 20 episode seasons. One of them's maybe 16. So it is.
Are those 20-minute episodes too?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Until the final couple movie type things, which there I think are 2 of. So it is still pretty digestible, but its premise and pilot episode are just like a great way to get you into that story and jump you into it. And then they keep the pace up pretty high through the early seasons. Then they start pulling back some layers on what those early seasons were and kind of recontextualize the entire world that you thought you were in, and including the characters, and there's some flips. And obviously I can't go into any detail, I would say, and done a good job
without giving things away.
of doing that. But it's 100% something you should watch, and it's not going to disappoint you at the end, I would say, at the very least, whatever your thoughts are on where it ended up and how they dealt with some of the characters. I was satisfied.
Get into anime?
I mean, growing up, there's the American Dragon Ball
Z, yeah, I remember
Naruto,
seeing that.
like that kind of stuff
Yeah.
is kind of on. I think it was sort of around COVID, and honestly, Netflix has a lot of these things, and it was kind of like what I said. I watched Death Note, and I watched Attack on Titan, and Death Note like kind of blew me away and made me more interested to find more stuff like that because it's sort of just like a psychological thriller and stuff. And then there was just a lot more there. But I've always been very interested in kind of learning and finding new areas of, especially like of entertainment or stuff. So when I actually got into a couple anime, I was like, oh, this is an entire world of stuff that I can actually like kind of tap my toes into or whatever and figure out what is great here because there are great stories to tell here. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Death Note and Attack on Titan are great starters ones, and they're both on Netflix. And I think Attack on Titan has a pretty good claim now that it's like the GOAT, like right up there with a One Piece, which of course kind of hasn't ended. So it's still kind of
that's still ongoing.
It's still kind of in the process.
There hasn't been a capper to it like there is with Attack on Titan.
Yes, and it's at least done, and it's in the books, and it's pretty easily now. Like it's definitely one of those Mount Rushmore animes. I think for like pretty much most of the community, it's built hype and it's built it continuously, and it's actually paid it off. And there's not a lot of shows that you can say that about an anime or not. Like it's a tough thing to do, but I think they landed the plane. I'm pretty happy with it.
I feel like that's high praise from you. I not that you're picky, but you like your quality content.
I do. I see the potential of things a lot more too, and I get frustrated when
it doesn't live up to what that potential.
Or when I'm like, oh, this is what it was right there, and you didn't quite go there. Like I had some moments with that with the One Piece live action of like stuff I said of like they didn't quite nail a couple of these important moments that were in the manga that built up through the characters and emotion, and so yeah, when things actually do, that's when I'm here to praise them, and I think this did.
Any other thoughts for your nerd corner?
No, I've got more coming in the future. We're getting close to the end of the year, and I'm eventually going to do a big one about this year of games because it's kind of been crazy.
Yeah, we've talked about that a couple of times.
I just finished Spider-Man 2. We'll get to that at some point, but
I can only speak on Spider-Man 1. The original.
I will say it's pretty similar.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll get to that at some point. But yeah, pretty crazy year for games, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I'll tease one thing possibly to add on to what we do here. Should we add some type of competition, gambling wise?
What are we talking about here?
Overall records against our bets, over-unders on games, things like that. Pay attention, like NFL games, some college games coming up. We could keep track of records, how well we're doing, see if there's some type of punishment.
I like that. Let's brainstorm on this.
We'll brainstorm it. That's why I said this is a little tease, a little sprinkle possibly of what we could do.
Yeah.
I actually did have one more question for you.
Sure.
Because I went to the store a couple times over the last few days, but nobody sells just like a straight up 6-pack of Bud Light. Have you done your fantasy punishment for Goose Egg? I have not done mine yet.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if we had to video record it and send it to the group chat or have to do it.
I posted it in the chat that night.
Oh, did you? I didn't even see it.
There was another one this week. Michael Thomas got a Goose Egg.
Oh, I know. That was against me. And I need the Jets defense to do terrible.
You're like the one game that's still close in our league, and it's like right there.
He's got the defense, so he automatically gets 10 points as soon as the game starts.
Right to start, yeah.
And then I have to try to have Garrett Wilson do it. So I need the Jets to get throttled defensively. Yeah. Maybe throw the ball out to Garrett Wilson.
Maybe.
Who knows?
But yeah, we have a rule where if you get a goose egg, you got to shotgun a beer. I just did it with the White Claw. That's all I had in the fridge.
Wow. Okay.
It was
It was
a good way to immediately get home from work and.
That's true. Yeah, you have a rough day. I guess I've got some Guinness, but that's not It's not one I necessarily want to chug.
Well, that's why I did the White Claws. The only other thing I had was like some IPAs. And I was like, I'm not doing an
IPA either. The only thing I could find that were single ones were like the Tall Boy Bud Lights. Like, I'm not doing 2.5 beers to do this, right? It doesn't make any sense.
No, not at all.
All right. Well, that was Ray Bradley. I'm Brian
That was
Slyke. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Sportslandia, brought to you by the Next Professional Athlete platform. And a big thank you to our studio hosts in Golden State Lumber. Can't do it without you guys as well. We'll tune in. Hopefully next Monday we'll get another episode going for you.
Yeah.
I know you and I are going to be getting busy with basketball season coming up. You got
Tis the
Blazers, Remix,
Portland,
Pilots, everything.
yeah.
You're a busy guy.
Doubleheader tonight.
Yeah, getting after it. We'll try to keep everybody updated when we'll be getting things. And again, we might be having our NBA preview next week as well.
Fingers crossed.
Till then, stay safe. We'll catch you next week on Sportslandia.